Dalton Reer. I'm a Master Principal Solution Architect here at Qlik. I'm continuing my series on Qlik and Snowflake Cortex. I'm super excited for this video where I'm going to show you what's possible regarding the integration between Qlik and Snowflake's Cortex. In my first video, I showed you basically what's possible in a PowerPoint chart showing you how agents work. What I'm going to do now is actually show you how these agents work, how you build a semantic view so that you can really understand how the data gets surfaced through the view into the agent and how you can then ask questions. Here we are in Snowflake. This is just their user interface, and I want to show you this data set that I'm working with. I'm super excited about this. If you've seen me and followed me in the past, you know I love healthcare data. This is a synthetic healthcare data set that's shared. This is not my healthcare data. This is not in my partner engineering database in any way, shape, or form. It's something that's shared. Anybody can use this. And it has an awful lot of tables out there. There's claims and allergies and medications. And you can see that for things like claims, there's 887 million rows. And I got 1.4 million rows of patients. And I've got. And the typical problem with a warehouse like this is, yes, the data is all out there. I've got all of it. But how many people are data engineers and SQL savvy enough to go make sure that they pull that together? And that has always been the problem, let alone if I just point a large language model at that data. The problem is that sometimes we've got crazy ways that things have to get joined together. I've got crazy business logic that's 85 lines of nested if in terms of real business logic behind the metrics. And so this is the data. Let me scroll up here and I'm going to show you where I've actually built a semantic view for this. So I've built this Synth Healthcare semantic view, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up and show you what it looks like. It's basically like a normal type of view that you would do, but it's a semantic layer. So I'm identifying the tables. I'm identifying what their keys are. If I want to put comments about tables and add more and more metadata, I can absolutely do that. I can define how things get related to one another just in case I've got some weird one-offs. Otherwise, it's just going to look at primary keys and foreign keys. So I've just put a few out there. I can identify facts that should come back. Hey, this is the real definition, but I want you to call it this. And this is the definition, but I want you to call it that. And oh, by the way, here's comments about those things. More than that, so you can see I've got an awful lot of those things. But I want you to see this metadata because I'm going to show it to you in Qlik in a minute. You can also say, hey, here's the sample values for things so that when the large language model is looking at it and saying, hey, the patient's, the user says something like, general hospital, I need to find out what field that likely is related to if they're using natural language to give it a definition without saying where the hospital equals general hospital, because end users don't necessarily know what the database definition is. Well, let me show you now that we've got that constructed. Here's how I use that thing. I'm able to just come out here and take a look at what agents I have available. And so I'm going to go ahead and load this one. This agent is built on that semantic view that I showed you before. Here's where that semantic view is. It knows where the data is coming from, blah, 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 blah. And I'm able to say, who are our top 10 frequent flyers? Right? And this is the same question that I asked in my PowerPoint thing where I showed you what could be done. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say show details. It's going to show you its chain of thought. And it's going to come right back from the large language model and say, hey, I think this question is asking for patients with the most frequent visits or encounters based on a healthcare semantic model. And it comes back as a result of that and says, hey, here's the SQL that I think needs to get run. Right? Now, a data engineer could have typed that up. Sure, they could have typed that all up, right? but the end user probably couldn't type that all up. Now, Snowflake builds that, all of that chain of thought of how this got done is done. And then in their intelligence view here, they're going to create me a chart that shows me that, or I can see the table with all of the data. And then they go behind the scenes and they do some other natural language generation with the large language model to say, hey, the most frequent visitor is this guy with this many, this is the next one, blah, 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 and any insights they might show. And they also have all of the real data that was behind that. Because what I love is that oftentimes when you ask a question, they'll actually go get additional data so that you could answer the next question. Like, hey, how long has it been between encounters? When was their last one? When was their first one? So that you know, this patient hasn't come back here in 5 years, so why bother with them? All right, now for the fun part. We're going to look at how we can actually use Qlik to talk to those Snowflake Cortex agents. Because, hey, I'm going to use the chatbot to just generate the PowerPoint deck that I showed you the first time. Maybe it doesn't really work as well as I said it does. But, yeah, the truth is it does, and I'm excited to show you. What you're going to hear me show is, hey, can I really pass filters on the fly with questions? Does the results that come back from Snowflake Cortex really become part of our model? Can I really dive into data live, like claims that I don't even have loaded in the Qlik application? Well, those questions and more are going to be answered in this demo as I show you how it really works. Okay, so that's it. You understood the data. Let me come into my application here, and what I'm going to show you is what I've got loaded. And so what I loaded was the encounters, the medications, the conditions, the devices, the care plans, the patients, the allergies, the organizations, the providers, the payers. What I did not load intentionally was these giant tables, right? Just to simulate if you were in an environment, like I mentioned in the first video, where you got billions and billions and billions, this really wouldn't have been a problem. We could have loaded this many. We've got customers loading 5 billion records. But I wanted to simulate these things are not in memory. And so if I go ahead and show you that data model, I want you to see what is actually there now. Right? This is the data model that I have now built. All right. I've loaded all these tables. Now here's what's really, really important. I told you how key those semantic views were. There was metadata in that view, right? I had definitions for each field. Wouldn't it be awesome if, ooh, wow, it did. If Qlik were able to surface that metadata for you from that semantic view so that you knew what these fields were. That'd be crazy cool, right? I mean, it's not like I could have a provider state and have a definition or payers and allergies, right? All of that metadata comes along with that into the Qlik application. So I wanted to show you that. We're going to come back to here, but understand that is the data that I've told you on this first screen I've got loaded. Did not have the other data, and there's no results here yet. So let me go to my screen. I can, like in any one of my applications, I could say, hey, I just want these patients. And everything is responsive. It filters me down to this, and I see the information that's about those. So I'm going to pick these patients. I could see the encounters for them. I could see the medications for them. I could see the devices for them. Any of the information that is in that entire data model is available to me so that I can see the details. I'm going to go ahead and ask our question, who are our top 10 frequent flyers? That is going to go off, as I showed you in the PowerPoint, and talk to the REST API that Snowflake has surfaced for the agents. I let it know I want that synth healthcare agent. I need to pass it the question. If I were passing filters, those filters would get passed as long as well. It is going to go through that same chain of thought that it did as though you were in the Snowflake Intelligence user interface. Try to surface those answers for me, and then it's going to return those answers. the answers are returned, the whole chain of thought gets returned to me, and what I need to do is process it behind the scenes to convert their JSON chain of thought into data that is available in the associative engine. Once that data is returned and processed, you can see, like I showed you in my PowerPoint, I can see these patients. I would be able to see the details about them. I can see the SQL that was used about them. All the things I showed you are true. The other thing I want to make sure you understand is, yes, that data was actually brought back, and I can see what came back in terms of the results set for the things I care about. You see it's just JSON content. Don't get overwhelmed with that. What I want you to see is these values. I have that result set in memory now that's part of my engine. This table for patient ID is no different than any of my other tables for patient ID. So when I click and I say, hey, I want to see about this person's 815 records, I see a patient ID here. I could have seen their name here, right? I get to see all that information. It returned Neil and Tremblay. I get to see their middle name. I get to see their birth date. I get to see their race, their gender, their blah, 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 blah. All of the information. I can see all of the information for all 815, as you see here, of Neil Tremblay's encounters as well, because that data is all loaded. So I could walk down through here, see any of this information. Now, if I wanted to see other information for Neil, like claims, I would be able to go off and simply click on this, and I'm going to go get that claims data live. So I'm going to click on this. You'll see this thing loading because it is actually going live to our on-demand application generation to bring that back. Neil has 1,419 claims with 9,000 transactions for a total of $611,000. Yada, 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 yada. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you was that I could pass filters along. So if I look at any of these medications for any of my patients, I'm going to get a list of medications. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to pick a medication and then forward that on. So when I ask for the top 10 frequent flyers that have this medication, right? If I pick that medication, I know I've got 149,323 patients, not the million that I had before. I'm going to say, who are our top 10 frequent flyers? And I'm going to ask Cortex Agent again. So let's take a look at the SQL that's used for this. And what we're hoping is that, holy cow, there it is, where the medicine description is like insulin, blah, 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 right? And so it's done the same frequent flyer thing, but it's already gone through to make sure that I'm only looking at encounters where this medication was prescribed as part of it to narrow that set down. Now, the beautiful thing about how this works is I can pass those filters as part of the question, and the LLM will then talk to that semantic view to figure out which of these fields is the right one for that. I hope that this is super encouraging for you. If you're some executive in the company, you're going to go pick somebody, tap them on the shoulder and say, go build this for us, because we need to take advantage of this. If you're a dork like me, you're the one with your shoulder being tapped. And in my next video, I'm going to show you how to actually make this happen and get it done for your organization. As always, I sure hope that you have a great day.